Hey everybody, how you doing this evening? It's my last day in Florida, so hopefully I'll be able to get out tomorrow with this hurricane rolling around here. But Kazra will be taking over for me tomorrow night, so be ready for that. We'll have some stand-ins here or there throughout the 2 weeks that I'll be gone. But you'll still be bored to tears watching me throughout the 2 weeks that I'm in Hawaii. But welcome to the show. We've got another illustration preview from the Heritage Signature Auction that is this Thursday. And I've got Sarahjane with me again in the green room. I'll bring her in and we'll get this thing started. Hey, Sarahjane, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I couldn't be better. I've had a long day, though. I'll tell you, I'm ready to get myself out of here. But it's good to be back. We got to meet in person at the San Diego Comic-Con.
I know, it was very fun. I didn't get to ask how the rest of your show went, if you picked up any treasures or anything like that.
I did not buy a whole lot. I picked up a couple pieces from a friend of mine, and I was gifted a piece or two from other friends. But yeah, other than that, I didn't come there with the idea that I was going to buy a lot. I'm actually eyeing something in the Heritage Auction on Wednesday. So if I'm gonna, that'll be my thing. If I can get that, it'll be interesting. But yeah, outside of that, no. San Diego was more hanging out, doing meetings, and and that sort of thing versus buying. But I had a good time. How about you? I mean, I saw you I imagine you walked around a little bit, right? You weren't behind the Heritage booth the whole time.
Yeah, I did. I walked around. What I like to do there is walk around, run into people, ask them what they've found, ask them to tell me why they love it, because I feel like that's the best way to learn more about any style of art, about anybody's personal habit, collecting habits and passions, is just to see them looking at something with delight in their eyes and be like, okay, share that delight with me.
Mm-hmm. So did you have a lot of collectors come by and show off things they brought with them?
Oh yeah, there are definitely people really wanted to show off things they brought with them, show off things they had picked up from Heritage previously, have us walk around a little bit with our friends and see what they were thinking about, and also walk around and learn about things on butts or butts on things. Was it butts on things?
If you went over to Anthony Snyder's booth, you couldn't help but see that. I did not walk one booth over to see what that was all about, but their sign was so high you couldn't miss it, right? So but yeah, that's why San Diego's okay for me. More from getting to meet and hang out with friends and stuff, and business acquaintances and things. But it's just so crazy. It's not really focused on the things that we love as art collectors as much as it might have been, say like 20 years ago. Now it's cutting boards in the shape of Yoda's head and and those sorts of things. But hey, we take what we can get.
I mean, it's the world that somehow we created from loving these things so much.
Exactly. That is very true. What did Mr. Easy Go Lucky say? Is it the first time back not in the Grapefruit Moon Gallery booth? I assume so.
Yeah. It's very interesting because the Heritage Auction booth is actually back to back from where the Grapefruit Moon Gallery booth was, and Taraba Illustration Art. So it was there were some old friends who I didn't get to spend the week with, and some new friends who I did. So that feels like a metaphor for, I don't know, how best to enjoy life. To remember that when you're not with your old friends, you can get to be with new friends.
That is very true. So, as far as this auction goes, I mean, I know you have you've been with Heritage for a little bit now. Did you help kind of bring some of these pieces in, or are you responsible for all of the ones that are going to be in the auction on Thursday?
There's never an auction at Heritage that one person is responsible for everything. And that's one of the really fun things about Heritage, that there's just so many people, even who are working in different departments, and getting to know people who have art and, sharing that art with, the illustration department, or even people, I don't know, so maybe someday I'll find somebody who has a lot of coins and I'll get to share all those coins with the coins department. So I definitely was not, solely responsible for bringing this stuff in, but I did have a very large footprint in the sale, and a lot of fun meeting the people who were consigning, learning their stories, finding out a lot about where some of this art, which is actually a lot of it has not been seen before, was hiding all these years. So I had a pretty big role in hunting down things, and that was a lot of fun.
Well, very nice. I see Marcus. Marcus is asking if you had the combination to the Heritage safe. I'm assuming that you did. Probably.
Oh, I'll never tell.
I did run into Mr. Halpern though. Finally, he was over at Bashara's booth at some point, and so I got to say hi. It was on the last day, but I think it was on Saturday afternoon too. So I started thinking I wasn't going to get to see him, but he seemed to be enjoying himself.
Yeah, I think so. I think everybody had a good time.
Very, yeah, that's true. I think. Well, you know what? Let's just dive into this stuff, right? Okay. So let's let everybody know the auction ends on Thursday, right?
Yes.
So when do the lots start coming up for bidding?
The lots start coming up at 11 a.m. Central Time on Thursday, and the first session is about little over 100 lots, and then there'll be a little break, and then the final session, which is the session that does not have a live auctioneer, the online only session, that comes up a few hours later. I believe that starts at 4 p.m. Central Time. So gives you plenty of time to bid, take a break, recalibrate, and bid again.
Well, that's, I'm sure, what many people will be doing. So let's see. Why don't I'll share the slides that we've got that we've selected from this here. So let me get the screen shared. And so here's something from George Rosen. This is a Shadow magazine cover from the early 30s.
Yeah, very early. It's the eighth issue of the Shadow, and it's really interesting because it's really where the Shadow becomes the Shadow. It's the first time he's seen on a magazine cover with kind of all of the classic elements of his costume, the hat, the cape, kind of all of it comes together in this image in a way that was then going to become really synonymous with his image as, essentially one of the first superheroes who ever existed. So I really find this one to be, I don't know, a particularly powerful and really well done image, and also just in terms of its kind of cultural importance, really significant too. And George Rosen is the artist from that era who is most, synonymous with the Shadow as well. So I think this one's just great. We actually got to bring this to Comic-Con, and we had it in the case, and people got to enjoy it in person. I don't know if you got to check it out, but I was very fortunate that we got to bring a piece of illustration art live this year.
No, I saw it was a very appropriate one to bring to San Diego. Definitely. Yeah. No, it's great. It's well painted. Composition's fantastic, and yeah, I can't imagine that there are several collectors that would like to put this in their collection.
I would really hope so. I mean, I can't imagine there's anywhere it wouldn't look good. That's the other thing. And it's even, you can't tell it in this photo, but it's even framed already. You can just hang it up on your wall.
Many of us appreciate that, so we don't have to do it on our own. Let me see here. So the next item, and again, there's a lot of pulp art in this auction, and great stuff, really great stuff. So this is Hughes Joseph Ward.
Yeah, so he's more commonly known as H.J. Ward. That's often how he's referred to, and he was, to my mind, really one of the best, if not the best, spicy pulp cover artists. I think I probably talked about him the last time I was on as well, because we had a couple of great awards in that sale. But I think this is really the height of his career. This is 1936, I believe, and this is when spicy pulps were very, very spicy, as you can tell by this, woman in this barely there, almost flesh-colored lingerie. And it's also when just he was at his most creative. There's so many elements going on in this scene. It's not just the damsel in distress looking at the crystal ball. It's not just the skeleton who might be there or might just be what she's seeing. It's also the literal menace behind her. And you can't tell from looking at it what the relationship is. If the menace, if the image of the skeleton is actually her being aware on some level of the menace behind her, if the menace of the skeleton is distracting her from the man with the knife behind her. But there's just something that you can keep looking at it and keep wondering, and also getting this sense that it's both at once just silly and frightening. And this is one of the pieces that I said that we really got to hear quite a story when we took it in, because this has never surfaced before. Nobody really thought it existed. It had been in one family for at least 70 years, because the person who consigned it, he is 80 years old, he told me, and he told me these stories about how it was in his attic when he was a child, and when he was 10, he was terrified of it. It just scared him, and then he grew to love it, and he grew to really get very interested in pulp art and pulp magazines and pulp fiction because of having grown up with this and kind of wondering about it. And then he grew to really appreciate it as a piece of art as well. So I think that really captures, I don't know, I think a lot of our stories about our relationships with these artists and with this art, where it's like it starts out with, it just grabs you in one way or another, and then as time goes on and you consider it more and you kind of mature alongside it, you end up having a really different relationship with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting that this image is something that he got to stare at the age of 10, and that's what frightened him into collecting some other pieces too. But yeah, no, it's beautiful. Absolutely, the lighting's great on it, and like you said, the whole thing is left up to your own interpretation, which is probably what a good pulp cover should do. I mean, as far as making you want to pick it up and read it.
Yeah, I also think there's a lot going on with them. Since you mentioned the lighting, I just want to point out that it's also got this really kind of surreal coloring. Like, why is the orange and the green and the blue all there in the background? You could make some sort of argument that there's an actual lighting source doing it, but really it's just emotion on the canvas in some kind of like wild way. It's just to give you that kind of kaleidoscope frenzy feeling.
Oh, it definitely has that. That's for sure. Very nice. I do remember you talking about a few word pieces the last time too, but no, he's fantastic. It's glowing, says Mr. Easy-Go-Lucky. Yep, you got that right.
Yeah.
Now, John Hilkert.
Yeah. So Hilkert is not an artist that you hear a lot about. Hilkert he's American born, but what he did, I believe he's American born. What he primarily did was, during World War II, there were, for a bunch of different reasons, these sort of protectionist laws that made it so for the Canadian market, the pulp magazines had to have illustrations by Canadian illustrators, or that were for the Canadian marketplace. And so they would be, a few months after magazines came out in the US, they would have these very like tightly similar takes from the American covers created by different artists to then put on the magazines, and kind of just slightly change things enough so that they actually were their own Canadian magazine. And this was for 10 Story Detective, just for the Canadian market.
Well, it's again, it's funny, she's got her clipboard in hand, but somehow they're throwing tires, and she hasn't.
I know. I really like that. And
she hasn't run out of the room yet, but she had to get her work done before she could save herself. But I love it. It's fun.
Or the clipboard's a weapon. I think that clipboard could take down that gun. I mean, that guy can't aim his gun with half a tire around him.
It's a great image. It really is. I love it. But oh, and then there's even an image of the cover. Yeah, there it goes.
Yeah.
And it's framed already as well.
I know. We try to make it easy for you. But if you're somebody who doesn't want things framed, you want things that you can, slip into a portfolio or do your own framing job, we can help you out there. Don't worry. Don't worry. Frame negative audience members. We can help you.
Well, that's good. I mean, some people prefer to have them out of the frame. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
All right, let me get the large image here for this one. So Malcolm Smith, Battle for the Stars. This is pretty cool. I mean, I love this era of science fiction painting. It's so many artists, modern artists, try to kind of emulate it in the work they do. I mean, I won't name names, but there's nothing quite like period pieces, from this era.
Yeah, and what I really like is I think sometimes when you're getting into the art that has fewer figures, it can feel a little technical, whereas this still feels really story driven to me. This really feels like you're getting the battle and that there's some stakes to the battle. I don't know if it's just from the colors of the starships that you really feel this chase vibe, but for me, I don't know. I really enjoy it for that. Like it feels like it's showing me the story of something happening. It's not just doing space. Not that there's anything wrong with just doing space. There's definitely a place for space for the sake of space. But this to me, there's just very much of a vibe of like, I want to know what's going on. I want to know why the one ship is chasing the other ship.
Right. It's like 5 against 1.
Oh yeah, it's true. There's
the catamaran spacecraft. Yeah, no, I love it.
And I really also love like how they're possibly getting through this, asteroid field of marbles. Mm-hmm. There's no way, but yet they do. And I think that's also one of the things that a lot of the period work was able to capture, this moment where we really didn't quite know how space worked as much as we do now. So the inventiveness really felt less bound to the rules that now we think we have to follow.
Marcus says, never tell me the odds. Yep, that's so true.
Very much, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, very nice piece. Definitely. I like it a lot. And I do chuckle at the asteroids, but it's okay. I mean, it harkens back to a time when we didn't know a lot about those things, and that's what makes it more interesting and quaint in its odd science fiction way.
But I think it really harkens back to a time where we were truly fascinated by it. We knew enough to be thinking about how, if you ever went into space, this is what you were contending with, and what it would look like was still kind of beyond what we could try and get our minds around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and of course it actually still is. I don't think anybody actually knows what having a firefight, laser fight in space would go like.
Not yet. Very well. I like that one. That one's good. Now this one, I'm not familiar with the artist's name. So this was from it's an interior from War of the Worlds.
Yeah, and so I mean, this is just to kind of stay on the theme that we were talking about of what it is like to imagine, space, the less you know about it. This is from 1906, and so the interesting thing about this is, this was apparently the author's favorite version of one of his favorite versions of the illustrations for early War of the Worlds, and it was known to have really captured the spirit of the book. And so he's not an artist. He's not an artist who's that well known in the U.S. either. But this is, to me, this tells exactly that story, that when we're looking at science fiction art, we're looking at art that's about the moment it was created as much as it's about the moment it's imagining. And you really get, it's almost an ocean liner sensibility to what's going on here. And if you think about what we just looked at, where all of the spaceships looked like concept cars because concept cars were really big at that point in the 50s. Now you're looking at the turn of the 20th century where there's still kind of like a lot of steam engines involved in how you're envisioning technology. And then there's also, like I said, like when you're thinking about the vastness of the universe, you're thinking about the oceans a lot, and there's this very oceany vibe, and I think it captures that really well.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the pencil work in this piece. I think it's fantastic. Love to see how it reproduced in the book, but yeah, no, I love it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that I don't have a copy of the book here to show you, but yeah, it's very moody, very
1906.
6.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm kind of bopping you back and forth all over time in this sale.
Well, definitely, because if the next piece is a Greg Staples piece, one of my favorite modern illustrators who works in oil. I mean, he's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that it's fascinating to look at his work in conjunction with the work of illustrators from throughout the 20th century, because more than almost anybody, he's just so knowledgeable in terms of all of the various techniques and all of the reasons these techniques have been chosen. And I think that if I was pointing, I could just talk about things I loved about this piece for a long time, but if I was trying to kind of connect it to why I thought of it after I thought of the Coria piece that we just looked at, I think there's a few things that, there's this really limited color palette that I know that one was actually not color at all. But to me, he's doing this series of, old films and old monsters and old fears that he's evoking in this. And he's capturing that through both the Invisible Man choice itself of the subject, and then also in some of the more technical ways that he's really drawing the work so that it does feel as though it is coming from a murky sort of past. And also, yeah, there's definitely a bit of a steampunky vibe hiding in it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. He's just an amazing painter. I wish I could own something by him. Maybe one day I will. But
I mean, the thing about illustration that I feel like I want to say every single time, at risk of being gauche, is that for comic art collectors, illustration it's a bargain. And look, I want to see Greg Staples' work, be appreciated and be in the homes of people who love it, and I want to see it be valued at incredible levels for future generations. But you should, if you want something, take a swing at it. Yeah.
I know he's painted many modern day covers. I think I'm trying to think Judge Dredd. I mean,
yeah.
A lot of it's like portraits, really. I mean, he's I just feel like it's something classical about his style, but again, he's so technically brilliant. I mean, the smoke or mist in the background really looks like smoke and mist. I mean, he's as photorealistic as you can kind of get with but still having that same his design sense kind of shining through, the hat being all a bit fuzzy, really just focus you in on the goggles.
Yeah. I mean, and the bandage that actually looks like kind of furrowed skin, which I think is a fascinating choice too. But this was actually used as the cover of Illustrators Quarterly when they did their feature on Greg. So I think that really speaks to just the incredible kind of like level of artistic mastery of this work in particular. We also have what I think is an equally great Dracula in the sale. I think I brought this one to share with people because I think there is something really interesting about how much these, there you go. There's the Dracula. And I think that they're both great, but I think with the Invisible Man, there was just something about how all of these artists in that we've been looking at, they've been doing so much drama without giving you people's eyes, without giving you what you would sometimes think of as the immediate storytelling elements of drama.
Right. No, very true. Yeah, this was nice too. I didn't realize you had picked one, and when I was going through, I picked the Dracula, and so I left it out. But now I got to show it anyway.
Yeah. No, it's definitely worth a look.
So now we have George Gross. This is from 1958, and let's get the image up here. There we go.
So the interesting thing about this is the year that I have listed on this is the year that the paperback book that this appears on came out. But he actually Gross used this twice. He used it first as the cover of a digest magazine, and then as the cover of paperback, and he had to change the background slightly for the second usage. So I named it and thought about it as that cover because in its form, as we're looking at it today, it is that cover, but it also had this initial first life, which is really common for the pulp and paperback artists of that time and pinup artists, because if you're working fast, if you're working hard, you're going to try and get as much mileage out of your work as you can. And so I think that this is a really interesting piece to look at because it's so sexy. It shows you how connected all of these different genres were in terms of like pulp paperback and Hollywood noir, and just this moment in culture where there were these real icons of, these real like iconic figures that crossed across all genres to, stand in for danger, to stand in for sex, all those things. And then also just it tells you a lot about the story of illustration and the way illustrators worked.
Yeah, so true. I mean, it's interesting that he got to reuse it and have it printed at least twice.
Yeah,
but, you get paid twice for doing almost the same task. That's not so bad. I love the couch.
I know the couch is so good. I mean, I love the hand and the little tendril of smoke. I think there's something about the tendril of smoke that is like the tendril of smoke is the viewer to me. Like it's like it is your way into this scene that there's no real way to know what happens in the moment after this. But
is she closing the shade or opening it? I'm assuming she's closing it.
I think she's closing it. I think we have to assume she's closing it. Yeah.
Well, all right, but no, I think I love this piece, and honestly, the hand holding the cigarette is very well done. I don't think you can see a hand.
I know it's true. You never think about that, but it's like, that is a flex on Gross's part to be like, in the middle of all of this, I'm also going to prove to you that I know how to draw a hand. There's a lot of illustrators who would do anything to never have to draw a hand
or a foot. so very true. But yeah, I like this one a lot. And I like this next one a lot too. Robert McGinnis. I mean, this one's come on. It's awesome. Yeah.
I know. I love this one. There's a few, again, I feel like very referential of a Hollywood star, probably Rita Ora or somebody, incredibly sexy. And what I also love about it is it's for, a book, You Can't Live Forever, that has nothing to do with James Bond, but even at the time, Bond is so part of culture. McGinnis is so connected, with Bond that like you can't help but feel as though it's that sort of really, I don't know, kind of like international danger spy story. When in fact, I mean, it is a noir, it is a mystery, but it's a very different story. I think it takes place in New York, and I think there's something I love just trying to figure out what they were trying to say with this. And I love the orange background. I think with illustration, the background colors tell you so much. You saw all of that deep red in the last one. You see all of this just burning orange in this one. And I don't know, to me, it really just, if you didn't know this woman was dangerous, she's literally sitting in flames.
Exactly.
And you can see her hands and feet really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I was checking out her feet and her hands. It's incredibly well done, incredibly suggestive, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Brian Emmerich used to be the owner, but he said I should never have sold it. I miss it. So, hey, we all know how that feels.
But you're still in the running.
Right? You could always get it back.
Bring it home.
What is it? Barry Stevens. And it's funny, the peeping Tom, the man looking through the window here or there, is in a lot of imagery from this era, and this kind of embodies, that trope really well.
I know. I think there's so much. There's so much that I like going on here. One of the things I like about this is that, we've just gone from McGinnis, who is one of the stars of illustration of the 20th century. And if you know the name of a few illustrators from that period, he's going to be one. This is somebody who we know very little about. And I think that it's to me, it always seems really exciting when you get to look at a work and you don't have any of the rest of somebody's body of work to compare it to. You don't know, you when you're looking at somebody who you're thinking about all their other work, and you're thinking about, well, do I like this more than another McGinnis? Do I feel like McGinnis liked this more than another McGinnis? When you're looking at something by somebody who you know very little about, you have nothing to kind of use to analyze the painting except for the painting itself. And so I think that it's just a different way to kind of be introduced to illustration too. That, what do we know about this? It was the cover of a book called Swamp Girl. I don't know what to tell you about Swamp Girl. I haven't read it, but maybe, Brian, have you read Swamp Girl?
You may have.
Yeah, if anybody can tell me anything about it, it might be him. But I think it's great because also I really love the fact that, like, he's a peeping Tom, but she's putting on a show. There's almost no menace in this one, as opposed to all of the danger that I've kind of pointed to in a lot of these before. Even though there's actually a gun in this one, yeah.
You better not get any closer, or that.
Yeah, Brian's like, he does a lot of work, but nothing shows up. So and I think that what I would say is that when you look at the when you look at the art on the covers, and you look at the art, on the board or on the canvas, you're ending up having a very different relationship with it too, in terms of kind of getting to know a painter's style, getting to just try to investigate, how they were working in certain ways.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think a few of these, or probably all of them, I think so far have been around that 12 by 16, 12 by 18 range too. So these aren't small. They're by and large, decent sized paintings.
Yeah. And I think they're going to get bigger soon.
Yeah. Now,
yeah.
Is it Arttr 10? It's not. But hey, we've got nudity on this one, and it's okay because it's Alberto Vargas. Everybody, come on, from 1950.
I mean, he's in museums. This is very artistic nudity, and in fact, specifically, this piece, this would be part of what he considered his series of masterworks. So he would, in between when he was working at Esquire and before he started working in Playboy, he really did a series of nudes that he considered to be his most artistic, that he gave himself the most time to do, that he considered to be, you know, his legacy works. And this is kind of among them from that moment in time. And you can really see it. You can see just all of the care that went into this. I mean, I was fortunate enough to bring this to preview in Chicago for a week, and people were just staring at it because it's hard to imagine that kind of this much tone could have been done with watercolor without seeing more strokes, without seeing kind of anything but the slight gradations of skin. So I don't know. For me, this is as good as Vargas gets, and nobody gets better than him.
Yeah,
and
no,
also just her eyes. That's just the
pulling her out of that tan colored background too is just amazing. I mean, it's really well done. It's beautiful, and those aren't flip flops; those are high heels. I could.
Yeah, no, those are definitely. I don't think Gene Dean would have been caught dead in flip flops.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, no, it's beautiful. It got the classic Vargas signature. I mean, exactly what you want. So yeah, I don't know what the size is on this one, but it's amazing. And it's not the only Vargas in here as well, right?
No, actually, we have an entire section devoted to Vargas. We're fortunate enough to be kind of starting a relationship with the Vargas Trust and to have a lot of longtime Vargas collectors and fans who are working with Heritage. So we really chose to bring a series of works that show the entire span of his career, from his earliest work where he's just really, you can tell the artist who he's referencing explicitly. He's got a work that looks just like Nell Brinkley. He's got a work that looks just like the work of Raphael Kirchner, who's an artist who he really admired, who he actually, Vargas's career started in large part when Kirchner, who was working for the Ziegfeld Follies, died unexpectedly, and he took his job, and that's how he kind of became Vargas. So we will bring you through the entirety of his career in the sale.
Well, but that's cool that you're working with them, with Trust. That means we'll see more of these in future illustration signature auctions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
But I mean, I'm not sure there's ever going to be one as nice as that Gene Dean, if I'm being honest, that Masquerade.
No.
It's as good as it gets.
No, even that's amazing right there. It's watercolor. I assumed it was probably like, in pencil, colored pencil, something like that. But to be in watercolor, I just can't even imagine how awesome that is. And it's large. That one's like 20 by 26. This one was 22 by 20.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, what do we have next here? Earl Moran. This is from the early 40s.
Yeah, so Earl Moran is he's just one of my personal favorites. He was, so Alberto Vargas, one of the things about him is that he really defied all of the stereotypes of a pinup artist. He fell in love with his wife in the 1910s, and they stayed married, up to her death in the late 70s. And, he felt lost without her. Everybody's like, oh, he was just, everything that you did not expect to hear about in a pinup artist. Really, nobody had anything bad to say about him. Earl Moran, on the other hand, he just was everything you would expect in a pinup artist in kind of some of the funnest ways. Just, always just, I don't know, like judging beauty pageants and falling in love with women. And just, he got named in the pinup model Chili Williams gets named in one of his divorce proceedings. Earl Moran, one of the things he's best known for today is that for a time before fame, Marilyn Monroe was one of his models. And so he just like kind of embodies, I don't know, what everybody wanted to believe your life would be like if you were a pinup artist. He got to live. And he also was just a really phenomenal artist. So this piece, I love it because I I really love the way that it's got the deep shadows that still have this hint of an Art Deco feel to them, and the inky black of the background that really just lets the figure star in the image. And then it just also has kind of the most defining kind of ooh face that you associate with pinup art. And it was actually something that he did outside of his main line of work. His main line of work at the time was working for the Brown and Bigelow company as a calendar artist, but he was working with Harrison for magazines under his middle name Steffa because he couldn't break his contract. So this appears as two different kind of girly pinup magazine covers that he signed Steffa. So I love all those things about it. I love the fact that it's got that little extra hint of daring too, because he wasn't even supposed to be doing this.
Mm-hmm. And this is pastel, not
Yeah.
not painted either. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Let's see here. Gil Elvgren. Sorry, stammering looking at her. Yeah, who doesn't love Gil's work, right? I mean, it looks like you have a few other pieces by Gil in the auction as well.
Yeah. We do, and it's really hard to choose a favorite among them. I think I chose this one because I love the. I think I chose it because I love the blank easel, because with illustration, one of the great parts about it is just remembering, why this was created. And this was created to advertise something. And, it wasn't just created to advertise something. It was literally created to advertise just about anything you wanted. That you could, if you wanted it to advertise comic art fans, you could have called up Brown and Bigelow and had them make a run of these calendars that said comic art fans in that square. And I think that that's really just part of the fun, that you can't ever divorce this from the story of its creation. And it is modeled by Myrna Hansen, who was Miss USA, who is, to my mind, one of his best models. So I love that about it as well.
Well, don't give me any ideas when I start thinking about redesigning the Comic Art Fans logo. But yeah, no, it's wonderful. This is huge. This is about 30 by 24 oil.
Yeah, which was basically his. That was his primary canvas style. Sometimes he went a little bigger, but that was really most of his work for Brown and Bigelow is at that size. His work earlier was actually a little smaller, and I think that one of the things that you could tell about him liking when he went to work for Brown and Bigelow was he did start working a little bigger, and also I would say spending a little bit more time on each piece.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's just sparse, in the amount of detail, but he gives you just enough. I mean, the hint of her shoulder to her elbow.
Her eyelashes. Look at those eyelashes, even.
Right. That's why I had to look. I had to zoom in because I was just surprised how he's very confident, and he's just putting down relatively simple lines here, and shades and tones, and it all comes together. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's see. A Nagel. Everybody's got to have a Nagel these days. You guys have done really well on with these in the past illustration auctions, and this is just a great image. I mean, if you need a Nagel in your collection, this would be a fine one to add, and you would feel pretty happy to have it.
I mean, I think this Nagel, to me is everything about Nagel. That, again, I spoke about this earlier when I was talking about the Invisible Man piece, that there's so much attitude being just driven by this image, even though you can't see her eyes. You can't see her eyes, but you know exactly what they look like under those sunglasses. And then also the sunglasses, they really are pure 80s, and the way in which the line of her hair cuts into her cheekbones to just make her look as though she's the fiercest woman on the planet. Another thing that I find really special about this is Nagel he primarily worked on board, and almost all of his Playboy work is on board. Almost everything that he was doing commercially was being done like that. And then he created also a series of these images that were kind of acrylic on canvas that he was showing at galleries during his lifetime. So this was shown at the Diane Gallery in 1983 in New York. Somebody bought it off the wall at that gallery. Nobody had seen it again until right now. And the canvases, they were his purest they were his purest interpretation of his images. He would really work an image, he would do the sketches, he would do it on board, and for his kind of most favored pieces, he would be creating these canvas versions of them. So they're the rarest of his work. They're kind of a lot of times they're the biggest versions of things. And this one in particular, I just think is, I don't know, as special as it gets and also as Nagel as it gets.
Agreed. It's beautiful. It's 30 by 30. I think somebody mentioned Bridget Nielsen kind of a look. Yeah, sure. That's
yeah.
But no, it's fantastic. I mean, everything that you appreciated in Nagel's work is in this piece, right? And boy, yeah, no, it's wonderful. Even the big collar.
But just the restraint of it, like the big collar and the way that, on the one, like you've got so much detail on the side with the popped collar in the jacket, and then on the other side, it just is entirely reverted to the shadows. I think that's a really kind of like bold way of drawing the viewer's eye exactly where he wants it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love it.
Yeah.
I like this one a lot.
We also have what's interesting, we also have the sketch for it in the sale as well. There's it's right after it. Yeah. And there's a Vargas work in the sale that we have the sketch also. So I think that's a pretty special thing to be able to offer, because especially when you're looking at these masterworks and you're wondering, I don't know, kind of the process isn't as visible as it is in a lot of comic art, where you actually kind of still see it on the page. That I think that having some of these iterations is, I don't know, it's, if I owned this, I would want to own the sketch as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. You'd want to keep them together as a collector. Yeah. That's
but we didn't get them in together. We did not. They didn't come in together. It was just a happy accident.
Wow. You weren't holding on to one, waiting for the other?
I think the thing about a Nagel canvas like that is it's rare enough that if you were holding on to something waiting for it to come in, you'd be holding on a long time.
Right.
you just gotta let synergy kind of happen when it happens.
Sure. And you saw there was a couple other Nagels in this auction as well. And then I thought this thing was beautiful. Henry O'Hara Clive.
Yeah, Henry Clive. Yeah, he's another one of my favorites, and I think I put this one directly after the Nagel because I'm running tonight on vibes. You just gotta go with me. But I always think when I look at this one that if the woman in the Nagel took her glasses off, that's the look on her face. Yeah, and so Henry Clive he's not as well remembered today as some of the other pinup and glamour artists of the period, but he was really from the 20s through like the 50s, one of the most prolific artists of women in the country. He worked extensively with the American Weekly and William Randolph Hearst. He also did a lot of things in silent film Hollywood. And it was a cover for the American Weekly from a series he did called Pinup Girls of History. And this is the actress Dorothy Lamour as Cleopatra. And I think that it's great. It's it's everything you expect in Cleopatra, just the haughtiness, the way in which she's even painted to be looking down at you just a bit. And it also is everything you need to know about Hollywood at that time, in that like there's literally a star system that is anointing, like in the most literal ways, anointing Dorothy Lamour, the most beautiful woman of all time, and just cementing that, because the American Weekly was it was a Sunday supplement to newspapers that went out all over the country. So millions of people just got this in their mailbox one day, one Sunday, and it was like, oh, Dorothy Lamour, most beautiful woman ever. And I mean, I look at that and I'm like, who would argue? Of course she was.
I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
But no, it's wonderful. I saw where was it? Number one Marvel fan said the gold looks amazing. I mean, that's what I was thinking. The gold, the bronze background color. I mean, it's amazing how he's gotten the metallics so well. And this is a mid-40s painting, and it's stunning.
Wow. And this actually was museum exhibited. This traveled to Germany to be in an exhibit about Cleopatra over history.
Well, I want to see the whole series now.
Yeah.
So are we going to get more later in the and maybe in the next signature auction?
I hope so. I hope everybody who's listening, look in your attics, look in your basements, and if you find any Henry Clives, call me.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I love that one a lot. Now this one, yeah, I mean, everybody just has to kind of smile at this one. Is it Fram or Frame?
I've always heard Art From.
From.
But
that sounds better.
Yeah. So I chose this because Art From, he's really known for what was called the Embarrassment series, which is what it's women holding bags of groceries who find that the elastic in their underthings has failed them, and it's like these classic panty drop things, and that's really what he's most known for. And I love this because it shows why those were so good, while also getting away from just that kind of that trope, which can be a little much for people. But it has that look on her face of like this kind of like bashful surprise. But the bashful surprise is not coming from kind of a public embarrassment. It's coming from the most adorable dog in the world. And I think there's also something that I think is worth noting about like the way pinup works, because pinup works because it's not just about kind of like sensuality or sexuality. It's actually about this play on innocence, and the puppy appearing is really where you see this innocence. If you hearken back to that George Gross that we saw earlier, that woman is in a lot of ways, far more sexualized than this woman, even though, she's in kind of her lingerie. This is much more kind of like about having a really different
dog bathing, outfit. And yeah,
I know. I might suggest a slightly more practical outfit for dog bathing. But
I think so too.
But nowadays we can just drop our dogs off at the groomers. So
right, exactly. And I hope she's indoors, not outdoors, because we really don't know. But that looks like a pail that should be outside, not inside.
Yeah, I mean, and blue normally signifies outside.
Right. I mean, that was the first thought I had when I looked at it. But the piece you were talking about with the gross piece was this one. I think everybody remembers. So
yeah
you can see that one is far more sensual than that, even though
even though that you would think of pinup as more about kind of like sensuality. So it's just interesting to kind of test our assumptions about these genres sometimes. And I also just thought we needed a cute dog. How it's been an hour and we haven't really gotten any cute dogs, have we? I thought we needed to change that.
It did. It helped change the pace a little bit here. Now let's see. Let me get this This one not load. This is that Bill Layne piece.
I was gonna say, I think we're gonna get another cute dog.
Let's see here. If I do that, that should work. There we go.
Yeah.
Another link didn't bring it over there, but yeah, we got another cute dog. Look at that.
We got another cute dog. I wanted to show this one because I guess I love cute dogs. I also wanted to show it in a way as a transition, because I think that it's interesting because it's got a lot of the elements that we've seen before in some of the pinups with the kind of like the facial expression. It also has a little bit more in terms of like the hair and some of the more kind of like sophisticated, darker images we've seen of women. It has an adorable dog. And Bill Layne, you almost never see his pinup work. He wasn't a very prolific pinup artist. He wasn't he worked for the Brown and Bigelow Calendar Company for a while, but what he was most known for is being a Disney background painter. So again, I just wanted to have a chance to mention that, because I think that we've been talking about all of these different types of illustration almost in their vacuums, we've got the pulp artists, we've got the pulp artists, we've got the magazine artists, we've got the pinup artists, and all of these cultures were so fluid. So many of these people were just working in lots of different registers, throughout their whole career. And I think that's sort of why it's also connectable to, even if you've never seen some of it before, that the culture that it's all reflecting back at us is the culture that was being kind of co-created by all these people. And I think that's a really fun element of it too. And yeah, I also just think this is an adorable dog.
Yes, but not behaving him or herself.
No.
Not at all. But yeah, fantastic image though. And this was a 20 by 15 board from 1947. Watercolor.
Yeah, and again, just really, really, you're not gonna see many more of these. They're not very common. Like, the Elvgrens, they're fantastic, and there's a reason that he was so prolific, because he was so in demand. He had, one of the most longest running contracts of any pinup artist with any calendar company. And, he's a master. But again, I feel like I talked about this earlier with the Barry Stevens. Sometimes it's fun when you see something where it's like, you're not going to see many other examples by this artist pop up.
Well, it is very nice. Very light, it's the palette is different than than, I don't know, just I guess it's kind of a lot like the Vargas palette, using the pale background and just kind of working in the female figure. And
it's true. But also then just the incredible, makes that brightness of that yellow pop in a way that's pretty unexpected too, to have the most kind of a visually demanding element of it be something so unexpected.
Very true. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit. Like you said, that was kind of a turning point moment, right?
Well, it was, because I did that on purpose, because I wanted to really just talk about how illustration has so many, I don't know, kind of like so many facets, and really think about like how you look at that last one and you see so many things that are so obviously, you would have no idea just looking at that the reason that you're getting all those kind of, the reason that like that reads as kind of darling in a way has to do with, the big eyes of the dog, the lightness of the color palette, the way that like he's so masterful at catching kind of like a bright sunshiny day, until you start thinking about him as a Disney artist. And then you start thinking about what Disney did. And I think that, this is it's a little bit of a shift, but in terms of the content, but then I look at the background and I go, this tracks to me. That, that's what a Disney background looks like. That's what Disney faces look like. And so this is just a really, this also to me, I wanted to just include it because I really wanted to just kind of try to get, really just get across kind of the gamut of what illustration is, has been, can be, will be. And yeah, this is a wraparound cover for a Disneyland magazine. We don't actually know the artist, but I like it. I think it's a lot of fun.
There you go. Yeah, no, it's over 50 years old, and it's pretty huge too. So 16 by 26. Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Wow.
We had a guy who did some work for Disney just on for an interview like a month ago, and it's fun. A lot of respect for the creators that got to work on Disney related products. Not necessarily doing the animation work, but getting to work on the storybooks and maybe some just concept art or storyboarding or whatnot. They were so, you look at it and you think, yeah, they all draw the same style, the Disney style, right? But they were incredibly talented to get to that position. Yeah. Not anybody could just sit down and do that.
And I think it's like anything else. I am not in any way, shape, or form a Disney expert, but as you become one, you notice that even within the Disney style, people have their ways of individualizing themselves.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Okay, and then I couldn't talk about this sale without talking about Precious Moments, because Precious Moments is really one of the most significant kind of pieces of culture in America in the 20th century. And if you're not familiar with Precious Moments is mostly known for their collectible figurines, and they were started in the 1970s. They were all kind of envisioned and came from these drawings by an artist named Sam Butcher, who passed away this year. And they were not, I'll be honest, they weren't a really big part of my childhood, but for people who they were part of their families, they're some of the most most meaningful things that they have come across. And like I said, you see them mostly in these kind of ceramics or often on greeting cards or calendars. And the illustrations themselves have never been offered before. And these come directly from this comes from Sam Butcher's archive, and I don't know, entirely how to speak for this better than it can speak for itself, but they are everything that you would never imagine you would see in this form, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. That if you only knew about the Precious Moments in passing, like I did, it would never even occur to me, as somebody who deals with illustration professionally, that, oh yeah, this whole universe started with a guy sitting down with a piece of paper and watercolor and pencils. But it did. And I think that is one of my favorite things about illustration, just remembering how much of these things that are just so much bigger than us really just come from, one person or a group of people and their imaginations. So I'm kind of excited. One of the exciting things about the sale for me has been kind of being introduced to the relationship that people have with Precious Moments.
Yeah, I remember them. My parents weren't into them. They collected Hummels more, but similar kind of idea, right? I mean, as far as usually one or two kids in and countryish clothing with, doing something different. But yeah, I remember these distinctly, but we never.
I mean, we're finding that they have a very rabid collecting fan base. So I think, I've tried to find a lot of things that I thought would resonate with all the people who are already watching this and that would be very familiar. And then I kind of tried to surprise us all. And this is definitely one of the ways I'm trying to just remember that, like I said, even illustration's even bigger than me. It's even bigger than the things I know, you know? And not just because Brian knows more about all of the paperback artists than I do.
Well, you both run circles around me, but no, this is cool. And like you said, they obviously have a lot of interests and stuff like that does, right? It's nostalgic, it's cultural, and to be able to own a piece of original artwork for the first time, or one of the first times ever, by Mr. Butcher. I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah. There'd be a lot of people interested in it.
And like I said, like they're the most popular collectible in the world by a lot of metrics. And just thinking about how literally, this was the first one that ever got made. This is the drawing that turned into the first one that ever got made, that started an empire. And thinking about like a piece of paper that started an empire is it's a lot of perspective.
Sure. Oh yeah. I think many empires have been started that way, right? At least
I think probably all empires. Yeah.
Yes.
Probably not exclusively by a piece of paper. It's usually not enough. You need some sort of manufacturing arm,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that is so true. But yeah, that is cool to see those.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could say, think about, like Jim Davis first drawing Garfield, right, or something like that. There's
exactly that
bit of inspiration, and then you never know where it's going to take you. All right, a Rockwell. I mean, if you have a Rockwell in your auction, we have to show it here on the preview.
Yeah, and you know what? I really love this Rockwell, and I love this Rockwell for I love talking about this Rockwell in this context. So this is for a story that Rockwell did for Women's Home Companion about Louisa May Alcott, and Little Women, this one of the most important cultural figures of the 19th century. And so I think that, and he went and started his work on this by going to her house and sitting in her rooms and trying to get a sense of who she was, because her house was a museum by that point. And I think that I think that so much of what we're responding to when we're responding to illustration is seeing these mirrors reflected of us in terms of our culture. And I think that, or in terms of other people's culture, as with, some of the things that we're less familiar with, or, looking at kind of illustration that isn't coming from the US. To me, there's something so fascinating about Rockwell when he's trying to honor the most important people he can, that he can imagine from the past at a moment when he's already one of the most important people of like his cultural moment. And so I don't know, I think it's fascinating. I also think it's just an incredibly drawn piece. I really we associate Rockwell so much with his full color work. So seeing how good he is when he's just working in the grayscale is like really great to me. And then also it's kind of just a lot of art. It's really just, you look at it and you think, God, that's a big, beautiful Rockwell that is kind of approachable in a way that the covers will not be for most of us.
Right. Yeah, very true. I mean, I was going to say the same thing about associating him with the paintings, but so it is cool to see a piece like this.
Yeah. Wow. And yeah, to just know it's still so Americana, and yeah.
All right. So yeah, Marcus says Rockwell is not a one-hit wonder. No, he's got his own museum too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool. So now here we go. Mick McGinty, Planet of the Dino Kings. So I mean, this is fun. I didn't read what it was for. Oh, it's a movie advertisement.
So yeah, so the Time Warriors series were the Time Warriors series. They were like straight to VHS movies, and I why did I pick this as of all the things I could pick? Because it delights me. You know, it delights me because it's actually one of the first things that this is after my time. You know, I knew this because like people's younger siblings were into it. I was a little bit too old for this by the time it came along, and I kind of just I find that a fascinating way to relate to illustration too, in the same way that I was almost talking about the precious moments where I'm like, I can relate to it as just, it is a wild piece of art, you know, and I love it for it being a wild piece of art. And I can relate to it because it's it feels nostalgic, and yet I'm meeting it for the first time in a weird way. And I kind of want everybody to have a little bit of that experience while they're looking at illustration too, to go like, the things that are so clearly connected to me, you know, I'm thinking about them immediately, and the things that take a little longer, I'm going like, well, what's the story here? And I'm taking the time to figure it out. And I also just think it's super fun. Oh, yeah. How was working with Mick back in the day? I would love to know that. He is another artist who was just so prolific and really versatile as well.
Yeah, it is a fun piece, and the thing is, it's right. It's 95. So for people who are collecting comic book artwork, that's the hottest era now in OA collecting. So it's a sweet spot for a lot of people's nostalgia.
And and I mean, and like, even if you don't know what Time Warrior is, you look at that and now you really do know what Time Warrior is, and that to me is like, that's the sign of a great piece of illustration too. Yeah.
Definitely. No, I like it a lot. I mean, it's like you, it's past my time when I would have been looking for something like this, but or reading these books. But yeah, I think it's fantastic.
I think he's a really fun dinosaur. I think maybe also I just was in a mood to look at animals, like in the same way I like those dogs when I was picking. I was like, I want to look at a dinosaur.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, Kelly Freas. I mean, that's another. This one there's a fair amount of Kelly's work on calf. He's so prolific, and and all. I don't know. I always appreciate his work a lot. I mean, this is kind of an interesting piece, right? It's it's an interior from a pulp from 1953.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a. Again, I like how psychological it feels. You know, I really I like the way that it doesn't feel like it could have been from any other moment in time than when it was created. I think sometimes I respond to both things. When I see something, I'm like, oh, that's timeless. That could have been any time. And then this, I'm like, this is the Twilight Zone. This is the mid 50s. This is this moment where there's just this kind of fascination with the internal and the hypnotic and kind of the brain. You see that in the way that there's like really no bodies here. There's a little bit of a suggestion of the woman's body, but really it's just like heads floating in kind of a field that you could envision being kind of like a sonic weapon. Even there's so much going on there that just feels like it's of the moment. And I also think that I picked it because I feel like I don't want to spend these 2 hours just talking to people about art that they can look at and they can enjoy, but they might not feel like they could ever bid on because it's, starting at prices that don't feel approachable. Because I really want to encourage people who love collecting to, find their way into collecting. And to me, the fact that it's almost criminal how approachable this piece is right now, this second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is cool. And Stingray said Vertigo vibes, kind of, but this is before Vertigo by a few years, I think. So, I think it's awesome. It's very well done.
Yeah.
And it is. I think it's only at 155, or at least the last time I refreshed this page.
Yeah.
Somewhere there. There you go, 155.
Yeah. And this, I mean, this also I feel like has a lot more kind of you can see the connection between illustration of the period and comic art of the period a little bit. This has, especially in the way the female's face is kind of rendered. There's like the style of the way people were drawing at that moment is really like you can really feel that like this is how women were being drawn in American art, in advertising, in art, in advertising and illustration, in comics, even in photography. This was just how women were being created.
Yep. Yeah, Chuck mentions like EC Comics. Yep, that's right era. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now let me see here. Raphael Kirchner.
Yeah, Raphael Kirchner. So I mentioned him earlier. I mentioned him earlier because he was the person who, if it hadn't been for his untimely death, Vargas would not have started working for the Ziegfeld Follies, and who knows how that man, how Vargas's career would have started, how it would have unfolded. I'm sure he still would have been incredibly famous and found his way to being an icon, but it would have been a very different world because literally he took Kirchner's job. And this is from a 1906 German version of Arabian Nights that's incredibly hard to find. And I love this. Again, I think the themes that I was drawing on when I was just picking were all the ways in which illustration can be so expressive without actually showing faces. And this I really enjoy because it manages to get like curiosity and menace and a whole mood and a whole story into a little vignette without actually showing anybody's face. And I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I was being drawn to that. I'm like, that's an odd spot there, But yeah, I mean, the work in this thing, it's charcoal, I think, but just love the cross hatching in the background, just to kind of add a bit of dimension and depth to the piece.
Yeah, and the depth of the white in that in the weapon in the figure's hand, I think is just such an interesting touch too. I really enjoy the restraint of this. We have a whole series of these, and again, I think that they're pretty fascinating pieces, and they're sitting there very approachably.
No, very nice. Let me see. I think this was the last of your picks.
Yeah, this is the last one. And I just, I think that, I think, again, I really just was trying to think about the things that I thought that I wouldn't want anybody who was, thinking about poking through the sale to possibly miss. And, Vampirella, we don't want anybody missing her, I think I would not be doing my job if I came to comic art fans and I didn't show off a Jim Silk Vampy. I think I would not be invited back. Although I probably did not quite think enough about whether we were doing comic art fans after dark, but hopefully.
That's after 10 now. We're good. Right. I mean, it was this was another piece by Jim, right? And,
that Betty Page. I mean, I could have picked any of them. That Betty Page, I think, is just a phenomenal Betty Page too.
I might have picked it. I don't know. I think I almost felt like I had to, but
I think you should have. I mean, I hope you did.
We're gonna find out. I don't remember now. I think I might have skipped it, but I shouldn't have, right? Because it's blue.
I know. Again, it's blue. See, that's what I was saying. Blue means outside. You know this.
All right. So we know the dog was being bathed outside by the woman in her lingerie now. But,
which is good, because if you need to,
it's probably in a fenced-in backyard. Nobody could see.
No, yes, definitely a fenced-in backyard. That dog was rambunctious. I would not trust that dog without a fence.
The talk of the town, otherwise, and not in a good way. But yeah, this is fantastic. Everything you'd want in a piece by Jim, in a colored piece. It's beautiful, and yeah, I've got a few of his art books. He's amazing, and
Yeah.
I love that piece too. And Betty
I
Page's
love those birds. Yeah, like yeah, I love her. I love the birds. I love everything about that piece. And yeah, the like the other pieces by him are just equally. That's a phenomenal example of his color work. Yeah, yeah, and that's a great. Yeah, that's everything you would want in Ursula Andress, right?
Mhm.
And you see her as she, and you see her in the Bond film. Yeah, it's kind of just giving you all of her at once.
Wow.
Yeah, that was hard. It was hard to choose among those.
Well, the ones I picked were from well, let's see, just I think from I wouldn't say artists that are more in line with comic art or anything, but more just pieces from artists that that I really like. Struzen, I know you have a few.
Yeah, that one, and again, it fits in with my theme of like it's doing so much storytelling without actually giving you, any faces, But it's like it's so. This is. I don't think anybody realized at the time Hook came out what a kind of like hold it would continue to have, on the culture. It kind of was one of those flops that became a classic, and I think he really captures the spirit of it in a really beautiful way there. I think the way that the clash turns into that lightning just kind of really captures the kind of like mythic aspect of that story. And
Mhm. And this is as good a hand as the one that was holding the cigarette
it's
earlier.
true. It's true.
You look at that, and that was a disembodied hand as well, just like this one, and it works fine. And the way that the rainbow is in there, and it literally is like shimmering when you get close to it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
pretty
And the way
impressive.
that like that really brings the kind of like childlikeness of it to
Hmm.
the fore. Mm. Yeah, he's
Right.
so.
Wasn't there like an Indiana Jones? I can't remember now. I don't see them like right up against.
Yeah, there's I don't know why they're not together necessarily, but yeah, there's both Indiana Jones, I believe, and a Han Solo.
That's right. That's
So,
what I couldn't remember what the other piece was, but
mhm.
the Indiana Jones one was really nice as well.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
Han Solo. I think the Han Solo is really great too. It's because it's got those other figures in it. Yeah, it's got a lot of charm. That actually is hanging in the gallery in Dallas right now. So I was looking at it in person earlier today, and it's a nice piece. They're all nice pieces. He doesn't really do bad work, but
No, not at all. And Drew's at least he's in Texas now, right? I mean, he's got the guy running Galactic Gallery
yeah.
running for him. It's very he's there's no one more well respected than Mr. Strusen, that's for sure.
And yeah, very, very, and if there is somebody equally respected, it is not as well earned. So
Hmm. True. It's Brian Froud. Is it
yeah,
Froud? I've always said Froud, but
I've always said Froud too. And if anybody wants to correct me, I will do my best to start saying it differently.
I just always love his work. I mean,
I know.
there's
Yeah.
so much like I mean I don't want to say life in this piece, but there is. Her eyes are so. I mean, there's emotion in this piece, and he's always done I like his color palette, and in a lot of his work
Yeah.
sometimes it can be a little bright or a little dirty or a little muddy, but it suits the character or whatever the story he's trying
Yeah.
to piece.
I mean, I also really like, there's all these kind of subtle things that when you look at them, you start to notice about in this face. There's you use the word life, and like, I think one way you could say that is like this, this fairy looks like she's lived. She looks like the tiniest bit tired, the tiniest bit weary, and just like it's like there's nothing plastic going on in this face. It's a face that has movement in it. It's a set of eyes that kind of seem to have thoughts behind them.
Exactly. That's what caught me on it. I was going to skip it, and it's just like there's just too much there.
No, it's great. I'm glad you didn't. Yeah.
Let's see. And then I had to pick Obama. So I mean, I just love his work,
Yeah, no, it's
related. I mean, whenever you see one of his pieces,
yeah.
I don't know how he gets so much detail.
I don't either. Yeah, to me, I know, this is the making of Israel's army. This is the book, and to me, all I can see when I look at this is the just the clothing, like in the way that we've been talking about how people have been doing hands, like that clothing, like all of the attention to just all of the movement of how these actually work. I wonder how many reference photos he had of soldiers walking to be able to just get all of that detail in a way that feels just so entirely expressive, so entirely correct. It's going to sound like a weird comparison at first, but it just instantly makes me think of, J.C. Leyendecker, where there's just the reason he was, the reason he kind of made his name in some ways, as an advertising artist for, men's clothing, is like nobody could do clothing like him. And this is just, to me, I'm just like, there's just every single detail, every single, like, just everything is just so true to life going on there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love it. My last three are, I don't know, they're more, I like these artists a lot, so I picked them.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. It's
I can't, he's still living, and he's a guy who deserves to have his work sold in an illustration auction like this one, where you're featuring turn of the century pieces and pinup pulp work.
Yeah.
Donato, he's earned his right to have a piece, in this auction.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've, I also think, I go back to when we were talking about, Greg Staples earlier, that there are artists who are kind of expressing in a way, their love of their lineage. And I think Donato's really one of those guys. And I think that there's the painterliness of his work is it's both just because he's so talented, and that I don't even think he could choose to do work that didn't bring that sort of emotional expressiveness and artistry across. But I also think it's like really making choices to remain in this canon of illustrators in a very intentional way. And yeah, I also think about I think about that work, and I think about the Froud together a lot in the ways that they're just really making restrained choices. I know I've used that word a lot tonight, but I think it applies.
It does. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be going to IX this year, so I'm looking forward to seeing his work in person again. Yeah, I haven't seen him in like six years maybe. So yeah, I'm a little overdue.
Mm-hmm.
Then I did pick Chris Achilleos for this piece. I mean, it's 79. I just, I've always loved Chris's work. Got a few of his art books too. I just think he's somebody that I think, I don't know, a lot of collectors probably are familiar with his work, right? Because he did, heavy metal and, a few other things. So they've seen a lot of his stuff before. But it's fun when you realize you can collect work by guys like that, right?
Yeah.
Same with Donato. I mean, as people who've created work in the last, say 30 years that sometimes you think might be out of reach or inaccessible. It was just cool to see something by Chris. I've always loved his work. I have a pencil piece by him that I picked up at an IX like 10 years ago, and he's just, he was a cool guy and did amazing work that a lot of people may not realize was his.
Yeah, and will you zoom into on that one a little bit?
Yeah, let me click on this one. Sorry. There we go.
Because one of the interesting things about that too is you wouldn't see it immediately, but there's a lot of if you were flipping through the catalog, or you have the chance to look at this work and then look at some of the early Vargas works, you're actually going to see there's a lot of ways in which this is in conversation with this early pinup style. And not just because there's a beautiful woman, but there's a very there's this very kind of like 1920s, the masquerade mask, the little flourishes on her head. And I think that, again, a lot of this stuff is none of these things are coincidences, like we all kind of like live in the world around us and, kind of experience life both unintentionally and intentionally, with all of these points of reference. And in this case, I would actually say there's definitely something very referential to some of these 1920s works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very nice. And it says 79. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not bad, but and 30 by 21, so huge.
Yeah. And if you like Christmas things, there's a lot of people who collect Christmas things. So if you're a Christmas collector,
that is true. I know a few of those.
Yeah.
So my last piece, this one, Michael Whalen. I again, another guy who's still out there doing amazing things, and so this is from 1980. Wasn't familiar with it at all. I don't know if it had. I'm just trying to see if there was a title, but I've always loved his work. So, and he's somebody who does have a fair amount of work on calf as well. And, yeah, I like his stuff. He's always had an interesting viewpoint.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like I think we could like be going for, because I noticed when you were advertising it, you advertised this with this James Warhola piece, right?
Yeah.
And we haven't pulled that one up yet. We should pull that one up just because it's fun too.
I should, but yeah, let me let's see.
I wasn't trying to skip.
No. We can look at this one for a second. I'll just make a different.
I think that one's great. I think that's a great work. But it's just when you said it was your last one, I was like, God, you didn't even get to all your favorites. I mean, I think that one, I want to talk about the way that reminds me of the science fiction space cover, from the 1950s, and like how you've got this same kind of series of improbable, yet kind of like entirely gonna make you suspend all disbelief to just be like enamored with that scene and what's going on in it. Obviously, this is in a much more playful register than that was, but it's just like I think about this and I think about the Malcolm Smith, and I think that they're great to kind of encounter within an hour of each other.
Yeah, here I just picked out a couple. I found the one by James, but I did like this one as well. I thought it was just that's amazing. It's so perfect. I just can't. I love the color swatch, which reflects off her body. I mean, it's simply her whole face turned into it like that. I mean, it's a masterful painting. I think. And I think about that and the McGinnis with the chair too. But yeah, this is great. Yeah, this is as good as that style of pinup got. And that style of pinup where like you actually have, a nude, it's rarer than, the kind of more cheesecakey pinup that we were looking at a lot of. And yeah, it's got this kind of like sophistication about it that I think is just really rough, but boy, yeah.
It is not. Yeah, this is what he did. These really kind of like the loose easiness of it that I think in some ways was at the time, doing things that were so loose was it was a way that you were communicating a level of kind of sophistication to your audience in a weird way, as like there was so much excitement about abstract art and a little bit of and just a little bit of like less kind of respect for the really like lush classical painting style that Elvgren was known for. Like this was a very much like this was a capital A, capital C choice.
And here we go.
Yeah.
I just thought this was so much fun.
I know, it really is. And it's,
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, it's again, this is like, even if you do not know anything about this book, you know about this book now, don't you?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole row here is it just makes me laugh. Everybody there.
And I love how it's like, we were just talking about how, incredible, James Bama is for like how just how, focused he was on getting everything kind of right from a from classical understanding of what that would mean. Like, everything actually, like the gravity works, the clothes work, everything works. And this, he has no concern. None whatsoever. And that's what makes it great. That's what makes it so you can't stop looking at it.
Yeah, that little guy in the sidecar is awesome too.
Yeah, like it's like, yeah, it's all about like bringing you into a world that is a fever dream.
Hmm. Yeah, major imagination on this piece. You get that right. Uh, but yeah, that's great. But yeah, like I said, I was just scrolling through it. There's a lot of really standout nice pieces in this. So if anybody hasn't had the opportunity to go through the auction, you should. I can even throw the link in the chat so we have it in there for later as well. But yeah, there's just a lot. I mean, you could pretty much talk about half the pieces, and because there is such a great variety of creators in this. And how many total lots are there?
410.
10.
Yeah. And yeah, and I mean, I feel like we didn't even talk about the fact that there's, a bunch of Virgil Finlay preliminary works.
Right.
Like we could really keep going, but if we did, then people wouldn't have fun of exploring it on their own.
I would just stay up and wait for my flight in the morning. But but yeah, no. So the link's in there. Definitely. I know we'll send out a piece of PR before the auction on Thursday as well. But I would encourage everybody to go through and take a look and even if you're not thinking about bidding, follow through to the detail images. These familiarize yourself with some of the artists that really, if many of these artists influenced a lot of the comic creators of today, in different ways, whether they know it or they didn't know it. I mean, like that second to last nude we looked at, I think of like Chris Samney when I look at that. I mean, the stark use of dark, blacks and whites with the stuff in his style that's very similar to that. And yeah, so yeah. Anyway, Sarahjane, this was fun as always.
Yeah.
Are you at the Heritage offices for a long time, or are you?
I am here through Thursday. I'm here through the sale, and then as much fun as San Diego was, as much fun as this is, as much fun as previewing the sale in Chicago was, I'm going to try to be home for a couple of weeks. We'll see how that goes.
That's good. And then should we expect another illustration auction about 4 months from now?
So there's going to be another signature auction in November, but we are really ramping up. So we're going to have a showcase auction just about the work of Vargas that is coming after this sale. It's going to be more of the preliminaries, and then we're going to have a single collector sale from the collection of Louis Mizell. That's going to be in October. And then we're going to be starting to roll out more regular kind of showcase sales with some of the stuff that we were looking at later, some of the newer stuff, some of the artists you might be familiar with, you might be less familiar with. And we're going to really be trying to really make the imprint of illustration, which is already close to the heart of Heritage, and even more ongoing part of the Heritage calendar.
Is the Vargas one already on the schedule, or is that
the Vargas one is on the it is on the schedule. I do not believe that it is. The preview is gonna start happening. Like the images, we're still working on getting the sale together, but you're gonna be able to start previewing it soon. But first things first. What was that I was just saying about I need a nap? First things first.
I understand.
Lots to look
they brought you in for your energy and enthusiasm. Sarah. I know you can tackle it, but yeah, first three things first. The Thursday auction, which starts at 11 Central or noon Eastern. On Thursday is the live session, and then there is a non-live session that starts. Did you say 4 p.m. Central?
4, yeah. That's going to be the online only session. And if anybody has any questions, though, you can find me. You can find me via Heritage. You can email me at sarahjaneb@ha.com, and I'm always happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Yeah, issues with questions with consignments, whatever, Sarahjane can take care of you. But again, thank you for doing this. I enjoy this. We should get together for one of the showcase piece auctions if you have the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, listen, everybody, thank you for hanging out with us as always. I think we looked at some great artwork tonight, and don't forget the auction is on Thursday. And you hit Sarahjane up if you want to. You know what her email address is now. She told everybody. I'm not able to show it on the screen for you. But again, thank you all. And again, thank you, Sarahjane. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And